Hey guys, welcome to the Touchdown Table. I'm Ryan, that's Tyler, that's Jordan. And in this video, we're going to talk about something that only happens once every 4 years, at least in the regular season, and that is the Texans playing the Bears. It is super unique occasion for all of us at the Touchdown Table, even though both of those teams are not, in the best positions. We're still going to enjoy it, have fun with it, talk a lot about it, and that's what we're going to do in this video. So, hey, this only happens once every, 4 years. Let's enjoy it, and, may the best team win.
Yeah, before we get into the nitty-gritty of this game, in case you're wondering why we're talking about such a boring game, or what seems like it, at least let's give you a little bit of a touchdown table history here. So Jordan and I are Bears fans, Ryan's a Texans fan. If you're new to this channel, that's why we're doing this. This happens once every 4 years. We got to make a video on it, so don't get used to game, previews or breakdowns unless it's like a Super Bowl or something.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get into it. Jordan, start us off. All right, I guess I wasn't quite prepared to start us off, but you know what? You get what you are given. And so we're really excited for this game. And as Ryan said, when we saw this game was going to be in Week 14 of the NFL season, we were like, oh my gosh, this game is not only going to be fun for us, but it could be really important for our teams to try to make a playoff push. It's more important for the Bears to make a playoff push because they are still in it. The Texans, although they're not mathematically
if we
dead,
lose, we are mathematically dead.
Yes.
Or if the Dolphins and the Colts both win, they are mathematically
But
dead.
they are on their last breath still, so they are definitely can still try to go out and win this game. So different circumstances than we would like it to be for both of our teams, but it's still going to be very fun. And the key to this game, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it, but we know that the Texans' run defense is not good. Ryan will tell you for sure they're towards the bottom of the league against the run. And last week against the Lions, who are another abysmal team against the run, the Bears did pretty well. So I think the key is going to be for this Bears offense to continue to rush good with David Montgomery. He had a good game last week against the Lions. I know they lost the game, but he still played well. This offense of the Bears still played well. But I'd like to see Montgomery really get it going in the run game. I think that's going to be a key. Take the clock down, keep Watson off the field, because the defense, they did struggle last week. So you do want to have your offense out there for as long as possible. And as a Bears fan, that doesn't always happen very much. Sometimes they're out there 3 and out. Sometimes they throw a pick on the first play. So it can be frustrating at times. I think that's going to be the key to the game. Yeah, and you're mentioning the run game versus that Texans defense. Really, I mean, I'm excited to see these teams, how they match up together, because I've talked about this before, but the Bears are really good at defense, and the Texans are really good at offense, and the Bears are not so good at offense, as we clearly know, and the Texans are not so good at defense. So, I mean, it's just going to be who wants to play better on this day. Clearly, that's how it goes in football all the time. But like I've said before, these two teams match up well. The running game for the Bears has been slow. The running defense for the Texans has been slow. Their secondary is now banged up because they've lost their top corner. And then going to the other side of the ball, losing a wide receiver for the Texans is huge. And I just don't know. That's what I'm looking forward to, is Deshaun Watson versus that Bears defense. Who's going to get the better of it, and I think that's where the game's going to be decided.
Yeah, it should be a really fun matchup, and I think it's going to be a very even matchup. I mean, they're fairly close record-wise. I don't know who's favored. I don't know. I mean, I think it could go either way. I'm not sure. But it's just it is disappointing, the circumstances, where we can't be there. I was actually in Houston the last time these two teams played. That was Brock Osweiler versus Jay Cutler. That was a long time ago. That was back in 2016, and the Texans won, so that was a fun experience for me. But it sucks we can't be there, but, 2020 is doing what it does best. But we're still going to have fun. We're going to watch it. I'm sure we'll be texting throughout, and, if the Bears win, I'll certainly be getting a lot of texts from a lot of people. But as far as what I look at when I look at this game, I look at do the Texans know their opponent? Because I saw something on several Texans fans pages that I follow and in an interview with the Texans coaches and their coaching staff, that they plan to, quote, expand David Johnson's role. I hope to God that they meant in the passing game, because if they mean they're going to run the ball more against that defense, then they don't know what they're doing. So, I mean, David Johnson, when he was in Arizona, when I was watching some of his highlights right after that ridiculous trade happened, I did notice that there were a lot of times where he flat out lined up as a receiver. I think he had more pass yards or reception yards than running yards in 2019. So I think that's what they meant by expanding his role. So that'll be interesting with that wide receiver core banged up. But I will say, in that game against the Colts last week, I think the receivers did a great job. Kiki QT stepped up. Chad Hansen, who was just elevated off the practice squad, stepped up. Exactly. I knew the name, but I barely knew who he was. But in my defense, there was no preseason. If there was a preseason, I would know absolutely everyone. But, unique year. There's definitely some lesser known names that are finally getting their time on the field and their time in the spotlight. So I think that Deshaun Watson, he can do it with anyone. I think that he's proving to be a top 5 quarterback in this league with the way he's playing and with the way things are unfolding around him on the field and in his organization. So like you guys are saying, I think it's Deshaun Watson versus this defense because when you look at the converse, the Bears offense versus the Texans defense, I mean, that's probably going to be kind of a stalemate because neither of those things.
We got weakness on weakness and strength on strength.
Yes.
That's why I'm saying these two teams are going to, I think, what will be a good game because, as I said multiple times, the match between the offense and the defense of both teams on both sides of the ball is an interesting one.
Yes.
And you mentioned the line for the game. I got the number for you. So the Texans are favored by 1.
Oh, really?
It looks like.
So basically a toss-up.
Yeah, then the point over-under is 44.5.
Yeah.
So
we'll see what the weather's looking like.
I do think, I don't actually want to see what that weather is. But for the point total, I could see it going over because the Bears' defense has been struggling recently. And Deshaun Watson is getting things going, starting to do what we've seen from him more often, even though he just lost Will Fuller. Still able to do some good stuff against the Colts defense last week, which is one of the best in the NFL, might I mention. And the Bears offense with Mitch Trubisky in the last 2 weeks has not been good, but dare I say it's been all right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely improved, but it's still not good. And I said this to Jordan during the Lions game last week. I said, wow, it's good to see we're actually getting to the end zone or getting to the red zone and getting to the end zone in general because this team just could not get points. And
it's a win to get into the red zone. As a Bears fan, it's a win times 2 to get into the end zone.
It's just it's kind of just a miracle when you see David Montgomery run or catch a pass to get in the end zone, or Cordell Patterson get a pass or what was that, a run in the end zone or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. I mean, those are just miracle moments for a Bears fan in 2020.
Yeah, they really are. But we're kind of talking about this Bears offense now. But I want to shift back to the defense for just a second here, and then we'll go to the offense. I'm sure that's something that we want to talk about for sure. But last week against the Lions, I feel like the Bears defense, they did not play to the caliber that they expected. And the same thing the week before that, against the Packers, that was not a good defensive performance. For one of the defenses that are regularly looked at as one of the best defenses in the league currently, that run defense, against the Packers, they did not have Akeem Hicks. They got him back for the game against the Lions, and it still was a little bit iffy. So I'd like to see things get better on the defense. And like that 2018 season, the Bears were really playing good because of takeaways. And I think right now, although, I mean, if you're trying to compare the Bears offense to the 2018 offense, I think it's pretty similar. So if you really want to start winning games, that defense has to get those takeaways. I know it's tough to just throw it on one side and say, you guys have to do your work. And of course, you could throw it on the other side and say the offense has to do the work. But just like we saw in 2018, the defense kind of has to take over, take a step up, because we know this offense is not going to be elite. So that's what the defense has to do. Last 2 weeks, not what I like to see as a Bears fan, although I was happy with the way that the offense played last week.
Yeah, and before we kind of continue on that topic, we mentioned, briefly the weather and how maybe a cold day could benefit the Bears. Right now the forecast says partly sunny, high of 32, low of 24 for Sunday. Obviously that's subject to change because it is Chicago weather. So that could definitely, I think, help the Bears because, one, the Texans coming from a much warmer place in Houston, a stadium that's, retractable dome, mostly closed against, a team that's used to playing in these conditions, used to playing outside games in, December and things like that. So, I mean, will that create a more run-heavy game that, well, I don't know who that's favored. They both have bad running games. I mean, anyway, but that kind of could dictate.
I would think it would favor the Bears because they have a better running defense than the Texans do.
Yeah, I mean, aren't we like 31 and 32 in offensive rush yards or something like that? Or I don't know if that's
not good.
But it's not good.
If it's not that, it's somewhere around there.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if Watson is the Texans' leading rusher in this game because I'm sure he'll be under pressure a fair amount. Although the offensive line has been doing a great job in the decent weeks.
And the Bears' defense has not got as much pressure as I'd like to see either.
So we'll see. Will that continue or will the script flip in this game? I mean, and another thing, Tyler, how you mentioned, with the Bears' offense, like it's not good, but it's still getting better, and there's a little bit of life. I really think that the Texans' run defense, it's gotten a little bit better. Don't get me wrong, they're not good. It's a big weakness on their team, and I would not be surprised if the Bears exploit it with David Montgomery, who's been doing pretty good since or Patterson. You line him up as a running back a lot, and something else. I think you guys have 4 former Texans on your team at least. You've got DeAndre Carter,
Gibson,
Gibson,
Mingo,
Mingo and Miller. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you just got one of our former punt returners a couple weeks ago, I think.
Yes.
Does he return punts for you?
No, he was for one game,
Oh.
and then no, for 2 games he was. Wait, am I thinking?
Wait,
of the wrong person?
who's the guy you mentioned?
DeAndre Carter.
I think he's the one returning now.
Okay, I don't know.
Maybe
he
not.
was number 14 on the Texans.
Hold on,
so
I'm gonna
yeah.
look.
I saw a 19 in there last week. That's what Ted Ginn was before, but I thought they might have released him, so maybe the new guy took over number 19. I probably should have paid more attention to that as a Bears fan, but they're looking it up right now. But I want to talk about this Bears offense really quickly, and we've been talking about how they played better last week, but if you followed football, you know that they have just been awful this year, and it's not just this year. The Bears have been struggling on offense for a decent amount of time, even in that season where they went to the playoffs and lost to the Eagles on you-know-what play. But it's always been the issue of the quarterbacks in Chicago, and I'm not quite sure how we're going to move on with the franchise in the future. I don't think we're sticking with Trubisky or Foles. I think Foles will probably stay on the roster. I'm not sure what they're going to do about Trubisky. That's a whole different topic. But right now, we got to play the season with what we got. And right now, Trubisky is at the helm. I think this team looks better with Trubisky at the helm. I like the mobility that he brings to the game. Although there are some times where he's out of the pocket. And the reason we want to play him instead of Foles is because he can find a gap and run up it. But when he gets out of the pocket, he kind of looks downfield. And as a quarterback, that's what you're taught to do, obviously. But if there's no one open, you can't just stand there and wait for someone to get open. If there's a huge area of green grass in front of you, got to take it, especially on this team. You got to pick out the easy first down unless there's something open down the field. I'd like to see that more from Trubisky in the future. But you just watched the film from last week. The offense no doubtably looked better, and no doubtably it was their best offensive performance of the year, in my opinion. So I hope that success continues into this game against a Texans defense that is really not too good.
Yeah, and to go along with the point you were talking about with the quarterbacks, you were talking about how Trubisky should run, which I was right. You made a good point about that. But in general, in this game, I feel like it's going to be about containing both of these quarterbacks. We know both of these guys are very mobile, especially that of Deshaun Watson. We've seen what he's able to do. You got to be able to take him all the way to the ground because the play is not over until one of his knees are down or his elbows on the ground or whatever it is.
Head.
So it's all just about containing.
Forearm.
It's all just about containing him inside the pocket, letting these
Ankle,
quarterbacks
chin.
stay inside the pocket and get him uncomfortable on these defenses because these defensive lines both are not terrible. The Bears obviously being better than the Texans in terms of the passing game, I should say, with the defensive line. But it's just. But you know how dangerous these guys are. I'm sure they're game planning for it. They gotta get some sacks and they gotta prevent those runs from Trubisky and Watson, as Jordan alluded to earlier.
Well, and also you're talking about the quarterbacks, and I think when on the broadcast, I obviously haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure that's going to be a big story because you know what? Every time Deshaun Watson and Trubisky play, or Mahomes and Trubisky, we're always compared.
First time since he was drafted.
Yeah, that's the first time he's played Watson, but it's always compared to because they were drafted in the same class. Trubisky went above both Watson and Mahomes, and there's always that comparison. I'm surprised none of us have talked about it yet, but I'm sure we'll get talked about it as a broadcast. I am sick of it.
It's gonna be
annoying. To be completely honest, there's still many people around Chicago who, honestly, I don't think they're as much of Bears fans that they're saying it at this point. They just know about the sport a little bit when they're saying, "Oh, we could have had that guy Mahomes." Because as a Bears fan, yes, you do have to realize we could have had this guy Mahomes. We could have had this guy Deshaun Watson, but you know what? That was 4 years ago. We got to move on with our franchise. It's over. We can't dwell on the past. We got to move on to the future and do what we can do now. So yes, it sucks. Yes, this team could be a heck of a lot better, but it was a decision made. There's probably going to be some people fired because of that decision. I'd say this year, Ryan Pace, our general manager, in my opinion, will be fired. We'll see what happens with I blanked on my head coach's name for a second, Matt Nagy. By the way, if they lose this game, his job might be in jeopardy again, as it's been a few times throughout this season.
Coaches fired.
Yeah, I guess my team is that bad. Where your job's in jeopardy if you lose to us.
Is there 2 times where it happened or 1?
It's happened with Matt Patricia already, so that's the only one.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe it's just an NFC North thing. They play an NFC North team that's not doing too well than the coach and maybe the GM, like we saw.
Well, we played the Vikings when they were 0-3 and we lost to them. So.
Yeah. Well, Jordan, going back to your point about the quarterbacks, because I want to end on that. I feel like that's a good way to end it. Going back to that point, I feel like this is kind of Trubisky's chance to temporarily just shut up the critics and say I can play well
Or
You
good
know,
enough. I could play good
I
enough.
can play good enough. That's right. I don't think that means he'll get re-signed if he beats the Texans, clearly.
We're not
Unless-
saying Trubisky's going to play better than Watson this game.
Yeah.
We're going to say he's going to.
If the Bears win, it's not
try
going
to
to be because
battle.
of Mitchell Trubisky. It'll
Yeah.
be because of the defense
And
or
it-
the run game.
And
or
if the
something else.
Texans win, you know the story is going to be
It
the
could
Bears could have had this guy and he just beat him and
Usually
all that.
defenses will make Trubisky win the game himself.
Well, yeah, they'll get a turnover, and then Trubisky will just have to start from the opponent's 15-yard line, maybe, and they still might keep the field goal. But
that's not always how it happens.
I know, but I mean, I would say if the Bears win, I think it'll be that their defense has a big day, puts pressure on Watson, limits the big plays. I don't think it's going to be Mitch Trubisky throws for 350 yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't think so. But
I think it's
maybe
the opposite in my opinion.
Really?
but-
So you think the key for you guys to win is for Mitch Trubisky to have the big day? You don't think?
I think
it's gonna be
the offense has to have a big day, not specifically Mitch. I talked about as soon as we started with Montgomery and with Patterson, the run game. I think they need to have a big day, and I think Trubisky definitely has to have some stats in there as well. Not saying over 300, but he could have in that 250 range where he was last week, 2 or 3 touchdowns, stuff like that. An average quarterback week, an average starting quarterback week, I think is what we need from Trubisky in a good run game. I think this offense really needs to do good. I love this defense to show shades of what they were doing earlier in the season and through past seasons, but the past 2 weeks, again, I said it a lot, but I've not been content with what I saw. So Matt Nagy challenged him to step up again after that Packers game. They got a little bit better, but still a little bit shaky. So I'm sure not just Nagy, but Pagano, who is our defensive coordinator, and every single defensive player is challenging themselves to step up in this game against the Houston Texans.
Okay, well, we're clearly excited for this game. If you guys watched to this point, you're obviously excited about this game as well because you're watching this video. But I just have a couple points that we kind of talked about throughout this video that are going to be some keys to who wins this game. So we talked about the matchup between the offenses and the defenses, how they match well against each other. And then the quarterback matchup, both of those guys are going to have to try and one-up each other after being drafted in the same draft class. Whoever has the better rushing attack is going to be huge, especially in the colder climate that we're going to see. Determination is a big one because both these teams are, let's face it, like one loss away from being out of the wild card hunt in their respective conferences. So you got to be determined and want to win this game. And then you guys just mentioned it right there. Step up and do what you got to do and don't give up.
Do your job.
Yeah.
That's right. So those are my key ideals. Some of them you can say are cliches, but that's just
sometimes that's what it is.
That's just how it goes, I feel like, and especially for two teams that have been struggling as of lately. So we have the Bears who are trying to break their losing streak and the Texans who are trying to keep pride alive and keep themselves mathematically in the playoff hunt. So a thrilling game going to be going on Sunday at 12 Central Time, which is our time here in Chicago. So thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to like this video if you're excited for this game. Subscribe to our channel to get more football content. Comment your opinions about this game down below. We'd love to hear who you think is going to win, what the score is going to be, who's going to be the better quarterback, all of that. Let us know down below. Also, make sure to hit the notification bell to be notified every time we post a new video. Go check out our podcast and go look at our Instagram as well because we do post there occasionally as well about football stuff. And I think that's all I have to say. So with that, we will see you guys later.
See ya.